All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless me here talking real music in real time for real people just like you, just like me. I want to thank everybody who is subscribed to the channel, and I'd encourage you to subscribe if you haven't done that. Also, you can smash the bell for notifications, and don't forget about Patreon for just $1 a month. I've got, I think, some of the best patrons on the planet who we have great conversations with, and they're just good folks, these salt of the earth type folks. And I appreciate them. I want to talk today about how both Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons don't really seem to care about the music industry anymore. You got Paul Stanley doing a soul record, right? And let's just be honest, why is Paul Stanley doing a soul record? Just throw that out there and let it hang in the air. And I've done videos. The videos aren't well watched because I think people are confused, or they tend to not want to talk about something that's negative. Gene Simmons is constantly saying rock is dead, rock is dead. And I've said I kind of agree with him. But is it dead permanently? Are we doing all we can to try to keep rock alive? Don't know if we are. Don't know if we are. And Paul and Gene should know better. You know, you kind of want to leave everything the way you found it on your way out, or maybe better. Those two gentlemen right now, with their views on the lockdown, they seem to be very pro never-ending lockdown. They really do. I mean, and anybody who has a contrary view to theirs, they just absolutely annihilate. On Twitter, it's constant. It's last week I saw, just people who are tired of this. It's been going on for a year now. Remember the 15 days to slow the spread? How did that work out for anybody? I mean, you would think there'd be, again, a strain of rebellion somewhere in the old school rock community, but it appears as though everybody's part of the same club. And it's frustrating. And by the way, this isn't necessarily political, although it's become political. But, medicine didn't used to be political. And science didn't used to be political, but it is. And a lot of the fans who shelled out mucho dollars when they were kids, or when they were young adults, whatever, their parents probably shelled out the money when they were kids, are now kind of alienated from the people who they used to admire or follow, or thought this. They thought these people probably looked at life the same way that they did, or at least in not such foreign terms that they couldn't relate to them. And with Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons these days, it's like they're the anti-rock crusaders. Hey, Paul, again, nobody was waiting for Paul Stanley's Soul album. And the media has accommodated Paul by printing article after article. And I've listened to it. And why would I want to listen to it as opposed to like going back and listening to the Spinners or the Four Tops, or authentic, real soul music the way it was meant to be? I mean, there have been a lot of posers that have come along and said, hey, I'm going to do a Motown album, or hey, I'm going to do you really want me to be singing soul classics? There are guys that can kind of get away with it. Like I mentioned Michael McDonald and Michael Bolton to some degree, because that is where their voice kind of is. And I think they obviously borrowed a lot of that sound in their own music. Whereas Kiss, really, no. I mean, there are a couple of moments, like I mentioned in one video, where in the late 70s, you were trying to kind of have your song played at Studio 57 or whatever the club was in New York. And if you had a dance remix or something, it might get a spin. But again, you're not going to compete with Alicia Bridges or the Bee Gees or whatever was hot at the time. You're just not going to, it's just kind of silly. You're always going to go for the more authentic music in that genre. I'm just a little, I guess, fed up with this constant drum beat. And there are other musicians too. These guys seem to be leading the charge. Let's get this over with. It's kind of a metaphor for their end of the road tour. Maybe the end of the road means end of the rock road. And, I understand Gene's a businessman. He's got lots of side projects and lots of little endeavors that he's into. Usually these guys, they have a wine, like the Gene Simmons wine collection. I don't know. I think I've read some stuff about that. Who's gonna, again, it's like you put your name on something. Now it works for Sammy Hagar because Sammy Hagar is so cool. And he's this forward thinking, positive guy who never wants it to end. And that's the right kind of attitude. Even if you know it's going to end, you put on a front and you say, this isn't going to end. I'm going to, and again, Sammy Hagar still creating music these days. Sammy Hagar still able to sing fairly well. 73 years old, I think now? I'm not sure. I lose track of these birthdays, but Gene and Paul, I think, are part of the problem. They're not part of the solution. They're not talking about any bands that are up and coming. In the old days, those guys used to produce other people and try to kind of help. Obviously, the legend, as everybody knows, how more or less Gene Simmons helped Van Halen get over, the big hump to get onto the big stage. But if anything, at this point in their career, they would be better off as talent scouts. And then they could tell people, hey, have you heard of this band? They're amazing. But instead, we hear about lockdowns and medical advice and just, the perpetual end to everything. And there's no hope in sight. Do your part because, even though we did the 15 days thing and we were told that was going to work, a year later, we're still doing the same thing. We're still doing the same thing. And it's depressing. And it just seems like they are, here's why they're content, because they've got their money. They've got their money. So what's it to them if the rest of the world isn't thinking like they are? They can spout opinions, and if they lose followers, if they lose fans, oh well. They can be curmudgeons until the very end. And I just think that's the wrong thing to do at this point. So that's my take. You may have different opinions on Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. I am a lukewarm Kiss fan. I am not an over-the-top Kiss fan, never was. Certainly never will be at this point in time. I've appreciated moments during the Kiss chronology, but it's not been this constant obsession with their music. I think it's been less about the music overall and more about the special effects, especially as time has gone on. And these two gentlemen can't seem to do the things they used to do, which is, it's expected. And it's not something that I say to kind of be critical of them. Others have adjusted and made adjustments to their sound, made adjustments to their stage show and their production and so forth, and kind of tried to still sing within the lines. As Billy Joel says, instead of throwing fastballs, you learn how to throw off-speed pitches and kind of not fool the audience, but do something that will keep you from looking silly without going completely into technology, which obviously Paul and Gene have always been high tech from the very beginning. So it's no, and by the way, this isn't just Kiss. This is so many other bands and people that you wouldn't expect or wouldn't think are doing it. I talk to industry insiders all the time, and they say, Dave, you don't even know what's going on as far as when a band goes out live, all the things that they are using to prop up their sound during their show. In any event, rock doesn't have to be dead forever. It could be in a very big down cycle, but you know, sort of the godfathers, if you want to call them that, which might be a little generous. Although when you look at Gene Simmons, you kind of do think of the Godfather. Um, you think they would be, again, trying to keep the legacy going, but it doesn't seem like anybody's. And when I say anybody, the Grammy Awards, nobody seems to be interested in keeping rock alive. So it's discouraging, but this is why I have a channel. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.